See.
In your voice, Dr. Tyrone Burton, a former elementary school principal and now education specialist, has a new book. Reframing of American Education shows the disparities in urban and suburban schools, something he describes as a Band-Aid on a scab until COVID hit, revealing the wounds.
The premise of the book is that racism and COVID-19 are symptoms of the same virus. Unlike COVID-19, there is a vaccine for racism, and it's us.
Are you saying before the pandemic and even through the pandemic that there has been some type of inequality in schools?
Yes, ma'am. I'm very clearly saying that our system of education is built on and has built into it a system for have and have-nots. There's two types of education. I mean, we have three different economies here, those for the wealthy, the billionaires, and those for the 10% and those for the other 90%. Education is the same way. The pandemic has not affected children who have parents who are very, very wealthy, or even upper middle class parents. But for the most of America, which is the 90%, it really has affected them and us quite a bit. And that has to stop. Even before the pandemic.
How so?
Make sure that funding is divvied out equally and equitable for all folk. In most school systems in America, there are two types of schools. You have schools that are on that get some of everything, and you have schools in the same system that are disfranchised. And they serve students who are under-resourced socially and academically. Those are the students that need the most help. So the funding needs to go to it needs to be what most systems should use, what I call performance-based budgeting, which simply means schools that need the most help get the most help. It's simple. It can be done, and the vehicle to get these things done is also there.
Dr. Tyrone Burton's book launch is set for tomorrow. There will be a chance for people to drop by the Office Hub, located at 331 Milam Street in Shreveport, starting at 6 p.m. At the same time, they will share virtually, so you can log on and see it there. The book is now available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Hello, my name is Dr. Tyrone Burton. I'm the CEO of Passion Driven Leadership, and I've just written a brand new book entitled The Reframing of American Education. And it's a look at how education should look post-COVID-19. I want to take the time right now to thank all the teachers, the principals, superintendents, parents who are doing a wonderful job in these uncertain times. I'm encouraging you to take a few minutes, go on Amazon, go on Barnes & Noble, and get the book, The Reframing of American Education. It's a look at how education should look post-COVID-19. We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our students, and we owe it to our country. I am so excited my books finally arrived. Man, those folk at Mind Matters work wonders. I can't wait to open the box. If I can open it without cutting myself, wow, this is so much fun. Oh, here it is. Oh, wow, this is real. The Reframing of American Education. A framework for understanding American education post-COVID-19. Now we can make some real systemic and systematic change. Now we can really start to get into what John Lewis called good trouble. I want to thank everyone for sharing this unboxing moment with me. You can help me by buying the book at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or www.passiondrivenleadership. We can make changes. Let's start today. Hello, my name is Dr. Tyrone Burton. I'm the CEO of Passion Driven Leadership, and I've just written a brand new book entitled The Reframing of American Education. And it's a look at how education should look post-COVID-19. I want to take the time right now to thank all the teachers, the principals, superintendents, parents who are doing a wonderful job in these uncertain times. I'm encouraging you to take a few minutes, go on Amazon, go on Barnes & Noble, and get the book, The Reframing of American Education. It's a look at how education should look post-COVID-19. We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our students, and we owe it to our country.
All right. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing out there? Thank you for tuning in to our broadcast tonight. I'm just so excited to be able to come to celebrate this wonderful passion of love. My name is Dr. Lamar Gorey, and I currently serve as superintendent of Caddo Parish Public Schools. But today, my role is to be the MC, to keep the program moving as we celebrate this wonderful book that our friend, Dr. Tyrone Burton, has gifted the world. Today, we are here to celebrate the release of The Reframing of American Education, a framework to understand American education post-COVID-19. Now, your purpose tonight in this virtual book launch is to just have a good time. I want to first start off, of course, by giving shouts out to those people that are hosting those watch parties tonight. We appreciate you and encourage any of you to share watch parties, because tonight's goal is to really look at not only where we are, but to look at where we're going in educating our children in the United States. I think we all would agree that March 13th changed our perspective in many ways on what we thought our biggest challenges are as far as educating children. Even though we knew a lot of those challenges, I do think the COVID-19 experience certainly made those challenges much more upfront for us. And what we've done with this book, and we're looking forward tonight to talking to people from around the corner, the country, to talk about how they actually use the wonderful information in this book to really change what we're doing for children in the field of education. Our goal also, though, is that at the end of this conversation tonight, at the end of this party, I should say, we want you to go out and get your copy of the book and really utilize it to help you as you make the most important impact we can make in the world. And that's the things that we do for our children. So thanks again for your watch parties. We do have a hashtag. It's Reframing Ed. That's FRAMINGED. reframing it, our hashtag, and encourage you as you hear the wonderful comments from our leaders tonight to take advantage and utilize that hashtag on your social media sites. But at this time, again, I welcome you all and really looking forward to having a healthy conversation about educational reform, at the same time having a good time. At this time, I want to welcome our band with a couple of numbers, and we'll come back and continue with our program. You're up, band.
I am so excited. My books finally arrived. Man, those folk at Mind Matters work wonders. I can't wait to open the box. If I can open it without cutting myself, wow, this is so much fun. Oh, here it is. Wow. Oh, wow. This is real. The reframing of American education. A framework for understanding American education post-COVID-19. Now we can make some real systemic and systematic change. Now we can really start to get into what John Lewis called good trouble. I want to thank everyone for sharing this unboxing moment with me. You can help me by buying the book at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or www.passiondrivenleadership. We can make changes. Let's start today.
All right. Thank you, band. Let's give the band a virtual high five. Great job, band members. You know, what Mr. Burton did, Dr. Burton, I should say, what he did in the book was he really looked at some of the big issues that we face as educators as we re-enter society post-COVID-19. Chapter 4 in the book is entitled Reopening and Resocialization. So this is a real look at what it's going to take to really reopen our schools and really re-socialize in a manner that people will be successful. Tonight, I have the pleasure of inviting a very good friend of mine, Dr. Nicole Houston Johnson, to speak to Chapter 4. Let me tell you a little bit about Nicole, though. Dr. Johnson is a result-focused instructional leader with experience in leadership development, strategic analysis and planning, and effectively using teams to eliminate the achievement gap. Dr. Johnson currently serves as Chief Partnership and Opportunities Officer with Resilient Institute. Prior to joining the Institute, Dr. Johnson was a secondary principal where she implemented innovative strategies and methodologies, which resulted in a recognized status from the Texas Education Agency at her school, which is the second highest achievement rating at the time in the state of Texas. She also received a Gold Performance Award for 51% of her students scoring at the commended level. Before entering administration, Nicole was a middle school and a high school math teacher. Dr. Johnson received her BBA in actuarial science from Howard University and earned a Master's of Education, as well as an Ed Doctorate degree from Texas Christian University. In 2014, she became qualified to serve as a National Inspector of Teacher Performance Programs. It's my pleasure to welcome to the stage, to the virtual screen, to the platform, my friend, Dr. Nicole Houston Johnson. Nicole and I go way back. We served as principals together in Fort Worth, so I know she's the real deal. What do you want to share with us tonight, Nicole?
Thank you so much, Dr. Corey. I'm just so glad to be here, and I appreciate Dr. Burton asking me to select the chapter that I was interested in speaking about. And Chapter 4 really connected with me because so much of the chapter is about the work that we do with school leaders across the country. As educators, we always talk about beginning with the end in mind. Chapter 4 ends with a quote from Kimberly Crenshaw, which states, "Treating different things the same can generate as much inequality as treating the same things differently." Kimberly Crenshaw is a Black feminist, such as myself. She's also a scholar who coined the term intersectionality, which is about the oppression of African American women. And she notably and currently writes about critical race theory. In Chapter 4, as we discuss reopening of schools during this pandemic, Tyrone really highlights the importance of what needs to happen differently to provide support and make the necessary changes for students to be successful once they as they're reentering schools. He also takes the time to identify resources that are available because he knows that the reframing of American education has to begin with the students who are most at need. And far too often, those are children of color, children of poverty, and children with special needs. Dr. Burton pleads with district leaders, specifically superintendents, to have a plan that addresses technology for students who are under-resourced both socially and economically. He urges school leaders to review the second phase from the Council of Chief State School Officers plan, which discusses the restart and the recovery of schools. This group's mission is to ensure that all students have access to all the resources such that they are able to have a rigorous learning experience, one in which they deserve. Another area which Dr. Burton highlights is if, or should we say when, schools have to close due to increases in positive testing during the upcoming flu season. Tyrone identified 5 things that leaders should do to ensure equitable access to learning opportunities for all students. He references an article published by the School Superintendent Association. This particular area, he highlights one key factor as a parent that has been very critical for our family, and that is creating and maintaining clear and regular communication to community stakeholders. All parents appreciate knowing what's going on with the learning process for their students, what resources are available to help to ensure that their children have a positive learning environment, and that is so important during this time. Also, in chapter 4, he talks about the $3 billion, which has been allocated through the CARES Act. In this, he really pleads with the state education agency to prioritize districts with the greatest needs and to strategically use the funds to close learning gaps resulting from the school closures, which began last spring. Then he talks about resocialization. Quite often in education, we talk about the summer slide. Well, Dr. Burton has now coined the term COVID-19 avalanche. And avalanche, why do you think he used the term avalanche? Because now our students are not only being impacted by academics, but also their mental health is just as important. In the book on page 107, Dr. Burton actually quotes Principal Portee from Douglas High School in Atlanta. And when asked, Principal Portee stated, "There are 2 kinds of people at my school, teachers and those who support teachers. It is so important that teachers receive the help and the support that they need so that they can provide the best quality learning experience for all the students in the building." Last, Dr. Burton talks about a reset room. Reset stands for restoring emotions safely and emphasizing trust. Dr. Burton believes that a reset room is so important so that when behavior issues arise with students in the upcoming school year, that they have a place to go in lieu of in-school suspension, that they have a place that they can go, that there's a trusted person there that they can talk to so that they will have an opportunity to return back to their learning environment as soon as possible. Ultimately, after COVID-19 ends, all educators hope that all children are prepared both academically and mentally to be successful and positive citizens. Thank you so much, Dr. Burton, for allowing me to share my thoughts on chapter 4.
Wow. And Nicole, you did a wonderful job for summarizing that chapter. There was so much good meat in that chapter, and really encourage educators to really look out there, because I do believe the way we re-socialize and the way we bring children back into the classroom when we have barriers like masks, and how we re-socialize and reconnect them will be so important. Thank you so much for sharing. All the best to the family. At this time, I'd like to bring the band on for a few more numbers.
I am so excited my books finally arrived. Man, those folk at Mind Matters work wonders. I can't wait to open the box. If I can open it without cutting myself, wow, this is so much fun. Oh, here it is. Oh, wow. This is real. The Reframing of American Education. A framework for understanding American education post-COVID-19. Now we can make some real systemic and systematic change. Now we can really start to get into what John Lewis called good trouble. I want to thank everyone for sharing this unboxing moment with me. You can help me by buying the book at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or www.passiondrivenleadership. We can make changes. Let's start today.
All right. Again, thank you to the band for that number. You know, as Dr. Burton has traveled the country and done work around school leadership, he's met some amazing people. And what I'd like to do now is invite one of those amazing friends of his to the virtual screen to share her thoughts around the book. And her name is Serena Lowe, a veteran classroom educator and former school administrator, Serena Lowe merged her love for children and writing when in 2009 she opted her first screenplay. Serena is currently the supervising producer of documentaries, television, talk show, and feature films. She has also served as the executive director of the Atlanta Pitch Summit since its inception in 2011. As a former member of the Andrew and Walter Young YMCA, she volunteered to assist in the production of several memorable events, one being the celebration of the life of Dr. Maya Angelou. Serena began CeeLo Productions in 2018, a multi-leveled company that provides production and management services. Recently, she was appointed director of show for the Miss Georgia Earth pageant competition, which has expanded into the Miss Tennessee Earth and Miss Florida Earth pageants. Thank you so much for being with us today, Serena. And you have the floor. Share those things that you took away from the book.
Thank you for having me. As you said, my name is Serena Lowe, and I'm a television film producer here in Atlanta, Georgia. But what I'm most proud of is that I'm a veteran educator of 31 years. I retired from education with 31 years. And Dr. Burton's book, The Reframing of American Education, clearly sheds light on where we are in education right now, dealing with something we never thought we would have to deal with: hybrid education, virtual education, and those things are have shed light on what we are dealing with during the COVID era. So as I read the book, I was really inspired by the overt and covert issues that he addressed as far as political and economic and social inequalities that are going on in education right now. I think the book is bold, and it provides a blueprint for going from protest to policy and using the frameworks of education. Dr. Burton and I have had conversations about getting the right people in the right place to address what's going on in education right now. And it's very important that you hire the right people with the right experiences and the knowledge to advance and keep moving forward with what we're dealing with in education. I enjoyed the book because it's a very easy read. The speech isn't confusing. He just speaks to everyone. Anyone can pick up this book and read it and understand. And if you're a parent, an educator, or a community activist, someone who just wants to understand what's going on right now, you could pick up this book and it would speak to you because Dr. Burton speaks to you. I have my book and I urge everyone to get theirs. It's a very inspirational read.
For your insightful views of the book, and thank you again. I can tell you're using your book. You have it all the post-it notes and everything in the book. So thank you for sharing with us today. Thank you. Now, whenever you work on a project such as a book, it's more than just having a great idea, gathering information, writing it, and putting it together. It takes a team working behind you. And Dr. Burton was very lucky to start working with Renita Bryant, and Miss Bryant is the publisher of the book. And at this time, we want to first say thank you so much for recognizing our friend's work and bringing it to the public. But again, we'd like to give you some time now just to share your thoughts around this project and just give a plug to the work.
Thank you so much. I definitely appreciate Dr. Burton even taking this moment of celebration to spotlight Mind Matters, right, on this platform. So I definitely appreciate that. As the founder and CEO of Mind Matters, every day I get the opportunity and the privilege to work with amazing purpose-driven people like Dr. Burton, from educators, pastors, and marine biologists to diversity officers, and even a former NBA player. Our authors have careers and expertise that span nearly every industry. And so even though they're all quite different, there's one trait that they have in common. And it's because they believe that they had an experience or some level of expertise that the world needed to hear. And so when it comes to publishing books, they found a way to move beyond what many people struggle through, which is fear and negative self-talk. And especially someone like a Dr. Burton, right, with all of this expertise and experience that he has, there's still always that level of vulnerability that you have to share with publishing. And so most people kind of stop at that hurdle, at that barrier. And so what I've found is the folks that actually get over that, they move beyond that, right? And they instead focused on the larger picture. And they understood that the books are a single part of their equation, but not the entirety of it. So the books really allow you to do three things. You can establish authority, you can increase your visibility, and you really get a chance to build your legacy through publishing a book. And so when leaders like Dr. Burton want to expand their impact, they know that publishing a book is one of the steps that enables them to do so. So if you're looking to increase your impact through publishing, don't be shy. Schedule a complimentary clarity call with us on our website, mindmatterspublishing.com. And let's partner together to really start building your legacy. And honestly, just being able to work with phenomenal people like Dr. Burton, again, that give you an opportunity, like he's giving Mind Matters, to be able to be in this position and just to spotlight the company because of the experience that we've had working together, I really appreciate. And it really shows the type and the caliber of the folks that we get to work with. So I'm really pleased. I'm very honored, and working with him on this book. And I'm sure you guys will find out later on another project that's coming out next year, has just been a pleasure. And I've learned so much on my own for myself in reading his book about the education system. I have a sister that's a teacher, but I really got to know so much, and even went to her and started talking to her as though I've been in the industry for so long, right? Because I just learned so much from Dr. Burton over these past few months. So I just appreciate him and thank him for being able to, for choosing Mind Matters as his publishing partner. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that information. And also, thank you so much for giving that wonderful plug to those educators or those people out there who have a story they want to tell. Renita has clearly opened the door for you to contact her about telling that story. So thank you for your gracious words about the project. This time, again, we'd like to welcome our band to give us a number or two.
Hello, my name is Dr. Tyrone Burton. I'm the CEO of Passion Driven Leadership, and I've just written a brand new book entitled The Reframing of American Education. And it's a look at how education should look post-COVID-19. I want to take the time right now to thank all the teachers, the principals, superintendents, parents who are doing a wonderful job in these uncertain times. I'm encouraging you to take a few minutes, go on Amazon, go on Barnes & Noble, and get the book, The Reframing of American Education. It's a look at how education should look post-COVID-19. We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our students, and we owe it to our country.
All right. Thanks again to our wonderful band for that performance. Now, if you work in a school or you live in a school, you know that there's some dysfunction. And I often tell people that anything successful is going to have some dysfunction. One of the chapters in the book, though, Dr. Burton focused on the functional dysfunctionalities and really just looking at that whole feeling of being overwhelmed in school. And coming to us to share tonight is one of Tyrone's friends from his doctoral program, Dr. Nate Dudley. Dr. Dudley is currently the field support liaison with 27 high schools and over 10,000 students in the South Bronx of New York City. In this work, Nate has worked directly with principals and teacher teams to develop systems and structures to improve student achievement. Nate grew up in St. Louis and went to high school just outside of Chicago, where he was a valedictorian. From there, Nate went on to Yale University, where he majored in history and played on the football. Nate actually started his teaching career as a bilingual global history teacher. He went on to work very interestingly in TV for the Globo of Brazil as the producer, and in this capacity, he covered U.S. news from their New York office. He continued his education by attending graduate school at the University of Texas in.
Hello.
Okay.
You're back.
I'm back live. Very good. He went to University of Texas at Austin, received a master's in Latin American Studies, and in 2017, he received his doctorate with Dr. Burton from Seton Hall University. Nate, why don't you share a little bit about this dysfunctional chapter?
Well, I just want to say thank you, Dr. Gorey, and also thank you to the band, and thank you, Dr. Burton, for having me tonight. It's an honor to be on this esteemed panel. Dr. Burton and I were in the same doctoral cohort at Seton Hall, and we've had many discussions both in class and outside of class about the need to reframe American education, and I'm proud to call Dr. Burton my friend. He's asked me to talk a little bit about the political frame, this dysfunction that's out there. So first, given what Dr. Burton says, the pandemic and racism are two sides of the same coin. And then he says on page 11, there is no vaccine for racism, but there is a cure. It is the unity that Americans, we the people, must forge to form a more perfect union, a union that increases the life chances of all children by providing them a free and appropriate public education. Now, I could take all of my time with just this quote, but in the interest of time, let me say this. As Dr. Burton makes very plain, the pandemic has completely exposed the racism that is endemic in this society at every level. Our economic system, our medical system, our housing system, and our educational system. I believe that our country just now, only actually not just now, but it really only began to become a democracy in 1965 when the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts were passed. So we obviously are a relatively fragile democracy. And we're young, we're a young democracy. And since then, many racist forces have been pushing back against these basic rights ever since then. Our struggle to create a more perfect union is under attack, especially from our current president. And I would argue that under these circumstances, especially in a pandemic, with our racist system exposed at every level, especially by that pandemic, our collective efforts to provide a free and appropriate public, I said public, education become even more important than they've ever been. And providing opportunities through education for our students to understand, create, and control their world. And I think the most important part is it is their world, not someone else's. That's become our prime directive. The second quote I'd like to highlight is from on the political frame is Dr. Burton's definition of the political frame. Power, politics, self-interest, conflicts, and intrigue. The challenge of this frame are developing an agenda, forming coalitions in order to build a solid power base, acquiring good intelligence, and learning how to dispense information wisely. Here's what I would add to that definition. Understanding and working in the political frame means organizing and creating our own coalitions in order to get what's on our agendas actually accomplished. One of our greatest Americans, Frederick Douglass, famously stated, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will." We will only be able to save and amplify all the rights that are under attack right now, our civil rights, our voting rights, women's rights, even the right to a free and appropriate public education. We'll only be able to save them if we as citizens, as educators, demonstrate our power. And how do we do that? We exercise that power by voting. It is National Voter Registration Day today. Hope everybody out there is either registered and everybody you know is registered and voting early. We exercise that power by electing passion-driven leaders, as Dr. Burton calls them, and he's called his company. We exercise that power by becoming ourselves, becoming those elected officials and making policy, just as junior high school principal Jamal Bowman recently did in the Bronx when he defeated a 16-term incumbent Congressman Elliot Engel in the recent primary. We exercise that power when we teach and involve our students in civic and environmental actions that directly affect their lives. In the high school I created in New York, our students are saving New York's water quality by growing and putting 1 billion oysters back in New York Harbor by the year 2036, saving the water quality of New York Harbor. And we exercise that power by working with our teachers to build what Dr. Goldie Muhammad at Georgia State University calls the criticality into our curricula, in which students ask questions in class about power, about oppression, about systems and where they fit into the world, and what are the solutions for the problems that they see. After chapter 1, I just want to be clear, I did do my 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I got my reflection here, Dr. Burton, and one of the commitments I came away with, and you got to put your commitments, what you're going to do, right? One of the commitments I came away with was to work more publicly for equitable funding formula for our schools. So one question I'll leave everybody with, and we could talk about it at the round table, or Dr. Burton could help answer it for us, is how can we pressure federal, state, and local governments to provide equitable funding in a time of COVID, when we're already being asked to do so much more, remote, hybrid, in person, and with less money to keep, and we're supposed to keep everybody safe on top of it. How do we find our own power to ensure that our districts are equitably funded, especially in this time? So my question is, what are we going to do? Thank you, Dr. Burton, for having me, and thank you, everyone.
Wow, very good. I had no doubt, Nate, you would deliver a powerful conversation around that chapter. And you're right; you could speak to that topic all day long. And again, thank you for whetting the appetites of our listeners, and hopefully they'll go out and read the chapter and really continue to answer your question about what will we do.
Thank you.
At this time, thank you again for being with us tonight. Tonight, I'd like to invite one more person to speak about a part of the book. And the part of the book that I'm going to invite Dr. Vaughn Calhoun to speak about is the conversation around standardization. And, you know, if you as a system leader, one of the things that we're truly concerned about is those things that are standardized and what will they look like as we go on the other side of COVID-19, that post-COVID-19 experience. But a little bit about Vaughn before. Okay, I think I'm on now. Am I on? All right, I'm on, Vaughn. Let me talk about you a little bit, man, before you
Sure.
talk. Vaughn currently, Dr. Vaughn Calhoun currently is the Assistant Vice President of Academic Innovations at Rowan University. In this position, he's charged with creating new academic pathways. Dr. Calhoun facilitates strategic partnerships designed to deliver online programs at scale to support non-traditional adult student learners. He is also forging critical relationships with businesses, government, and educational partners to support the university's mission. Dr. Calhoun has also taught graduate level classes and different classes at many different universities. Dr. Calhoun is passionate about higher education advocacy for students, successful, participating through participating those from those historically underprivileged communities.
Mhm.
Dr. Calhoun is a graduate of Rutgers University, earning his BS in Administration of Justice, where he also participated as a full scholarship Division I football player, earning 3 varsity letters. When we get together, you and Nate have to share some of your football stories.
That's right.
All right. Dr. Calhoun continued his education by earning his master's of public policy and administration from California State University, Long Beach, followed by his doctorate of education from Northeastern University. The introduction would not be complete if I did not also acknowledge that he's a proud member of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
There you go.
You're up, man.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gore. Thank you, Dr. Burton. So when we talk about standardization, I understand the premise behind it. Everyone has to be measured on a uniform criteria. I take the same test that you take. However, standardization assumes everyone has uniform access to funds, facilities, and even teaching faculty. But we already know this is not true. Yet we want to measure outputs without acknowledging the inputs. And even looking outside of the inequities of access, Dr. Burton he mentioned standardization. It stunts creativity, it stunts innovation, it stunts complex thinking. And under this paradigm, teachers must teach to a test. But yet, we somehow forget that these students will take on this world that is volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's very ambiguous, and they really need to be creative. They need to be innovators, and they need to be thinkers. So even at my level, working with college students today will have 17 different jobs in 5 different industries throughout their career. So their success will really depend upon their ability to learn, to relearn, and to adapt to change. And those who can do that will fare much better than those who don't. So when you think about the problems of standardization, it doesn't allow for full creativity and full utilization of the other side of your brain. But also I want to make the point of not forgetting, how AI, automation, robotics will become even more prevalent as these students in K through 12 grow up. And it's just not blue collar jobs that will be impacted. There'll be white collar jobs. And if you really think about it, think about some of these industries that are already impacted. You think about a Airbnb. They are the largest provider of lodging, but they own no hotels. Or you think about a company like Uber. They are the largest taxi cab company, but they own no cars, right? And this is real life, real jobs being impacted. So we're going to need individuals who are creative, who are thinkers, who can go in and disrupt industries and create new norms, because the world is not standardized. It's not a one size fit all, as Dr. Burton continually says in his book. The world can't be fit into a multiple choice test of A, B, C, D, and E. Curriculum really has to address these issues. Otherwise, the gap between the haves and the have-nots will only increase. So the question that we really have to ask ourselves is, how can we impart, we meaning teachers and we meaning K through 12, impart the values of creativity and innovation in the classroom at scale, working within this system. So Dr. Burton's chapter on standardization brings to light all these issues, in particular, how we need to help students think and help them approach a world that is volatile, complex, and very ambiguous. So I want to thank Dr. Burton for writing this book, but in particular, this chapter hit home with me because as I talk with college students, a lot of times when they come into my classroom, they always say to me, "You don't give me the answers. You sort of just provide a framework for us to work in, and that's so much different than high school." I said, "Of course it is. It's supposed to be, right? Because I'm challenging you in ways you might not have been challenged before." But if we can do this challenging a little earlier and get them more accustomed to really thinking and really being innovators and really using their creativity, we will be a much better society for that.
Yes. Wow. Thank you, Vaughn, for that information. Vaughn, I'm going to ask you to stay around because we're going to invite the other moderators and panelists into a group conversation. So let's give everyone a few minutes to jump in with us. All right. And I'm also so happy to welcome to our conversation our author, Dr. Tyrone Burton. Let's give him a virtual round of applause. First off, thank you so much for sharing from your perspectives and the things that you took from the book and how you'll utilize this information as you go into your jobs every day. But I do want to just lead a little quick conversation around some of those things that I think that educators that are in the seats today, those practitioners will certainly find very meaningful. Let's start off just talking a little bit about in chapter 1, and Nate, you did a wonderful job of really speaking to what that chapter was about. You're doing those notable things that you're doing to really manage your leaders or to really build leadership so that you are functional in a dysfunctional world. Because we all agree there are some things politically, there are some things that we just can't change. So how are we managing that dysfunction? And I'll just take one person to jump in and share some thoughts on that area.
I mean, I could start. I'll just say that one of the things we try to do all the time is find the right principal first, because you need it all stems from the top in a school. But you want the right principal is usually what, as Dr. Burton describes it, a passion-driven leader that's developing the capacity of teacher leaders in their school, and developing departments and or grade teams and or other groups of teachers and developing those leadership capacities, because principals can't be in every room in every class. It's just not going to work that way. The bang for the buck comes from strong teacher teams where teacher leaders are working with their teams to help each other become better educators. And that means a strong curriculum. That means a curriculum that talks about kids' identity, meets them where they are. That means a curriculum that talks about criticality and looks at power structures that exist in the society and gets kids to think about the real world. So developing those teacher leaders, I think, is one of the ways in a local situation in an individual school you can overcome some of that dysfunctionality that exists in large systems.
Nate, what I'm going to add on to there is that one of the things that's highlighted in chapter 2, which is one that we didn't really highlight tonight, but it's really the conversation around equity. And anyone that knows me knows that I've certainly led an equity agenda as I've tried to provide all children with the opportunities to receive what they need to chase their wildest dreams. So my thought would be, though, even as we went into COVID, I think all of our perspectives as to what equities or what those equity gaps really look like change. We saw things like the digital divide. We saw things like the divide with parental support when you were virtual in a stay-home order. So my thoughts would be that even as we're thinking about things like the CARES Act funds and we're thinking about our federal funds, how are we going to look at those resources differently? And what are some of those thoughts around how we provide more equity and opportunities to children?
So I'd just like to jump in here and say it really begins with our teachers, because our teachers were really put in a situation where they immediately had to be virtual teachers, and they were not prepared to teach students on that medium. So it's very important that during this time that we're making sure that we're providing professional development with teachers, meeting them where they are, such that they are prepared to meet the students where they are in trying to close the gap that has been widened due to COVID, and to really just make them a priority, because they are working hard and they are risking their lives, many of them each and every day, to still give the students the best education possible.
Stepping into this COVID-19, post COVID-19 experience, and we know that our goal is to protect our children. And I think we all know and prioritize the needs of those children that needed us the most. But what does it really mean to effectively open a school safely after COVID-19? What does it really mean to ensure that all children are receiving those resources that they need to be successful? Anyone have any practical examples or any thoughts around that? And that can, and Vaughn, you may want to even approach that question from the collegiate level. What does it mean at a post-secondary school?
Well, I guess at a post-secondary school, at a college, one of the biggest concerns is that, you know, students are congregating amongst themselves, that we have to provide housing, and how does that play out in a very practical way? We all have our theories of, you know, everyone's going to do the right thing, but what happens when someone doesn't do the right thing and multiple people don't do the right thing? So, you know, colleges right now have moved to having dorm rooms set aside for people or students who might be infected or who are positive, but you know, there is no precedence. You know, we have no playbook to pull from. We are building this thing as we're going. And, you know, some colleges are doing well and some colleges had to start and stop within a week. So I think right now, you know, moving forward with common sense, moving forward in a way that makes sense for your institution, your community, and knowing, you know, that you might have to pull the plug and be okay with that, right? And getting faculty on board saying, hey, we might have to make that switch just like we did this past March, right? But having all of those contingencies, I think that's the only way to move forward, and just being agile, because it is a very volatile and fluid situation.
I'll say also, we lost 37 teachers in New York City in March and April. 37. We lost 30 paraprofessionals. We lost a guidance counselor in a school that I work in. We lost a principal, a young black woman principal, 38 years old, a young white woman principal, 41 years old, triathlete. We lost, you know, like, and so, even opening now, which we're trying to do next week, with less than 1% positivity in New York State in terms of testing and watching the numbers and all of that, and social distancing and hybrid learning and everything, I feel like this is, you know, one death is too many. You know, we've already been through that, and I'm really afraid, because we have had no national response, no federal response, no plan whatsoever, and we just crossed 200,000 nationwide, and all, you know, we get crickets from the national government, that we're, you know, we have these situations where it's going to come back to New York. It's going to come back because we haven't controlled it nationally. We never did. And so I'm afraid, even though we're trying to do the right thing and we got the kids wearing the masks and everything else, I don't know if there's a real way to open. And I was in a school yesterday where a teacher tested positive, and I had to make the call in, right? I had to call it into the situation room, and we've got all these protocols set up, but at what point do we actually, I wouldn't say pull the plug, I'd actually say put the plug in, because we're going to have to go remote again. I don't know how long it's going to be.
Friends in New York, and again, as we face some of those similar challenges across the country, we all acknowledge we don't have control of the virus at this point. Now, what I want to do as we wrap up this roundtable conversation is this is your hashtag moment. This is your moment to put that statement out there that someone's going to tweet out, and we're going to make sure we tag that with our hashtag reforming ed. And the question is, and Nate, I'm going to kind of grab a little bit of the question you presented earlier, but my question is, what do you see as the call to action in educational policies or reforming of the American education to bring about equity in education? And we're just going to go around and let each one of you share your tweetable thought around what policy needs to change, what needs to happen in the area of reform if we're truly going to see equity in education.
If I am on,
Go ahead, doctor. They froze on us. You're back.
okay.
Tyrone, you going to start?
Yeah, and also I want to welcome school board member from Monroe City Schools, Brandon Johnson. I want to weigh in, but I want to hear what he has to say. He's a friend from Monroe. His family and I go way back. But more than that, he's a young man who's committed to making educational changes in the city of Monroe, and he's doing it by being a board member because he's passionate about increasing life chances for children. So I'm going to weigh in after we give Brandon Johnson, board member, an opportunity to say a few words. Board member Johnson.
Thank you a lot for having me. Looking at this, and I'm new to the conversation here, and I just want to weigh in on some different things that you all have talked about. Because as a board member and as a young board member, I see a lot of different things going on in our community here in Monroe, Louisiana. And I've been actually one of our board members that's been able to stand up and stand out on this situation. I'm a board member that kind of go in and out of the schools on a regular basis. So with this COVID-19, it has really been a really impactful thing here in Monroe. And based on the things that we've done in Monroe City Schools, because Monroe City Schools was recognized by the state as being one of the schools that took on the platform of the distant learning in our state. We came out hitting the ground running, doing the Zoom, going through Google Classrooms, and really embracing the change. But when it really came down to it and really trying to get to the situation when you talk about getting back into the classroom, that situation really touched me, and it was really tough for me because I had people and constituents that looked to me for answers. I had constituents that looked to me for, like out of fear. I even had some of our teachers' husbands reach out to me and say, "Hey, man, it's hard for me to send my wife back into that classroom with all these things going on. What are you all going to do as a board? How do you ensure that safety?" And I had to be the person to give some of the bad news. I look at, our state, the way we're moving as far as with the CARES Act, with the national government with the CARES Act. And to me, we're using our students and our faculty and staff as a science project, if you can look at it like that, because nobody has the right answer to this. And really, we're not ready. We're not ready. We're not ready. I've looked into policies on our local board to see how and to use my power as a board member, because as a board member, we are a policy making board, and we direct our superintendents to move accordingly. However, I talk and I deliberated with other board members to tell them, hey, man, it doesn't matter how they may look at it, how how many temperature scanning machines we buy, how much hand sanitizer we buy. We're not ready because the fact of the matter, if these people are asymptomatic, that does nothing for our district. That does nothing for our people. And we have teachers and older staff. And I represent an area where we're more in the rural area, whereas in our district is pretty much 80% African Americans. So I look at it in a different light because those people high blood pressure that weighs in a lot on our community, and it's mind boggling. But as a board member, these things came up, and sometimes we sit back and not really take the forefront to say, hey, no, this is not going to work. It doesn't matter how the state is going to move, long as we are in line with the state. We're going to make our own policy in order to say, hey, we're not going to put our teachers in that. If we want to keep our teachers accountable, we put our teachers in the classroom, let them quarantine in their classroom, let our kids stay virtual. So, and right now, we having problems right now where we have kids and we have some of the people out of the rural areas that's sending their kids, giving them Motrin just to send them to school. And then once that wears out, then we're infecting other people and we putting people in a really bad situation. So looking at policies, it's a lot of things that has circulated through my mind. And we have had deliberations and fights on our board about it, to be honest with you, and just to try to make them understand, look, this is a tough situation, and it is really hard right now with these trying times, and people are scared. However, we're still, I've been into every school in our school district since all of this has went down, and I made sure procedures was in place. I looked into the staff. I said, hey, if there's anything that I can do as a board member, let me know. Because one of the worst things, and I'm gonna leave with this, one of the worst things throughout the CARES Act and going with the policy that they are put in place, they're taking the pressure off of the national government, taking the pressure off the school district as a whole, and they're just to these people in these bad situations. They're leaving them in a bad situation. We had one instance where they brought and said, you don't have to have a negative test to return back to work. We're going off the trust system and says, oh, I'm okay. I don't have any symptoms and I'm ready to return to work. That is a complete joke to me. Complete joke. So I'm gonna continue doing what I can, and I appreciate Dr. Burton. Like he says, I came up under Dr. Burton along. He was a friend of our family right around the corner and in my area in District 6 here in Monroe, Louisiana. So I look to people like Dr. Burton and other people that I can reach out to you that's going to really show a young political figure at this time the way to go. I dig into my district, I dig into my people, and I let them be the voice for me. And I be the voice to speak out and try to do the very best I can to let their voices be heard through me. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. The one thing I've heard from all of you all is the passion that you have for our boys and girls. I stated in the book a lot of the themes that you guys have covered, but I just want to say it would be a travesty, and we would do our kids an injustice if on the other side of COVID-19 we went back to the same things that we're doing now. At the end of every chapter in the book is a reflection piece, and I put it in there for a reason. So it's not people just to read, but to reflect and write down what you've learned, what you know, how you feel, and more importantly, what you're going to do. I really believe unity is our strength and diversity is our power. You've heard from some very knowledgeable panelists. You've heard from Dr. Goree, from a board member. You've heard from college professors. You've heard from people in all parts of the country. All of us are suffering from the same virus, but the cure for our virus is us. We can cure what we have right now, the equity, the inequity, the inequality. We can cure those things by simply doing those things that are rightful and righteous by our kids all the time. So let me challenge us as we move through this season of uncertainty to do like Mr. Johnson is doing, to do as Dr. Gorey is doing, to do as systems are doing all over the country, and to not just think but rethink why we do what we do and then make the changes accordingly. Don't just do things we've been doing for the sake of doing it, because we know that where we are now can be considered by some as a grand experiment, but it doesn't have to be like that. This is not the first time this has happened. It may not be the last time, but this can be the last time that we have this happen to us and it catch us unawares. So I challenge all of us to heed the clarion call, to really start to get in what John Lewis called good trouble, and thus by doing those things that are right, rightful, and righteous all the time for all students in all communities. Because if America is going to live out the creed of its character, and such that we all have a right to a free and appropriate public education, it's going to take all of us working collectively.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Burton. Great job. We can only follow that up with the band. So let's get a number from the band.
Hello, my name is Dr. Tyrone Burton. I'm the CEO of Passion Driven Leadership, and I've just written a brand new book entitled The Reframing of American Education. And it's a look at how education should look post-COVID-19. I want to take the time right now to thank all the teachers, the principals, superintendents, parents who are doing a wonderful job in these uncertain times. I'm encouraging you to take a few minutes, go on Amazon, go on Barnes & Noble, and get the book, The Reframing of American Education. It's a look at how education should look post-COVID-19. We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our students, and we owe it to our country.
All right, as we prepare to wrap up our program today, we do have a few more things that are very special, but we want to certainly take this opportunity to thank Eddie Spencer and the amazing band for our entertainment tonight. Now, when you are someone like Dr. Burton and you have made such an impact, not only as a public school educator, but even post leaving the principalship, all of the impact he's made, you meet a lot of people along the way, and a few very special people have stopped by virtually to say congratulations to Dr. Burton. So let's bring in some of our people that want to celebrate Dr. Burton. All right. Some very good friends. I think we have with us today, and she is Caddo, Marie Clark. Also, he is Caddo, my very good friend, Dr. Gerald Dawkins. And also, I think there's another Mr. Burton in the house. So we'll start with the beautiful lady first. I'd offer your congratulations to just go in the order that I introduced you.
Yes, thank you very much. Congratulations, Dr. Tyrone Burton. What a major accomplishment. I'm just elated because I had the opportunity to mentor Dr. Burton. Mentor Dr. Burton. And that's a long story. But it was my pleasure to watch him come full circle. I'm so excited. I found him to be very compassionate about education, very caring. I found him with integrity, intelligence. I found him with wit. I found him lying down, kicking, and whatever it took. But somehow we came full circle. And this is a great time for me to say how proud I am of Dr. Burton. And I just wish that he would continue his journey in education. God bless Dr. Burton.
Okay, well, I'm going to say to Dr. Tyrone Burton, this is your brother Tracy. I'm extremely proud of you and what you have accomplished. You're living up to the family creed. I remember what our grandfather used to tell us when we was much younger. It's not a question of knowing the right thing to do, but it's also about knowing the right thing to do and be willing to do it. And just from my glean from your book, is not only a motivational or inspirational word, but it's also transformative. And I think that's what you are about. You've always been about is not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. And for you to actually take the time and put it into a book to share the passion that God has placed on your heart to inspire and transform us into something bigger, better, and brighter. Tyrone, all I can say is, man, I'm proud of you. And I'm sure your grandmother is saying, you know what, you're not doing anything I didn't expect. So congratulations. Congratulations to you and your entire family. Congratulations.
Hello, Dr. Burton. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hello, Dr. Burton. Again, just congratulations to you. We just want to take a brief moment out of my day. I'm locked here in Michigan and under this COVID watch for the last 6 months. So it's a little crazy for me. Ms. Clark, great seeing you again. And my great friend, Dr. Goree. Can't say enough about your passion, your knowledge, your commitment to the children and the adults that you work with and serve. And I think that shows in this work. Also, Reframing is a timely kind of a book. It is one that will inform leaders, because after the pandemic is over, there's another side of this. We need creative thinkers to think about what the other side is. There is no going back from here. There is no going back. It will be different, but you can't go back. This is bold, courageous thinking, and I'm glad that you're putting this on the table to help decision makers begin to look at it differently. The panel that you guys put together, led by Dr. Goree, outstanding. They're dealing with the right issues, relevant issues, And I would say to all of you who are still doing this, and I'm on the business side now. I live in Michigan, working in DC, but on the business side, educators are the bravest, most courageous people I'm seeing nowadays. And you guys just keep going. And Dr. Burton, reframing America's education is a great step in allowing people to use some creativeness and trying to figure this thing out. Dr. Goree hit it well. And I'm just proud of you, and got my own personalized copy, Dr. Goree, so I'll treasure this. Thank you, Dr. Burton, and Dr. Goree. Great seeing you again, and all of you. Thank you so much.
Very good to see you too, my friend. Now, at this time, it is my pleasure, first off, to humbly thank Dr. Burton for allowing me to be a part of this project tonight. I am truly honored to have had an opportunity to lead him from the superintendent seat and to see the wonderful things that he invested in the boys and girls of the Cherokee Park community. And please know, Dr. Burton, that community will never be the same because of what you did for children there. So it's my pleasure to be a part of this program tonight. And to wrap up the program tonight, I would invite our author, our principal of excellence, our now published author, Dr. Tyrone Burton. Again, congratulations, and I wish you the very, very best with this project and all those that are to get to come.
First of all, let me say thank you. I want to thank God for putting this message in me. I want to thank my wife and my family for being patient, because since April, I've been missing in action. I've been in the house, but not at the house. My mind has been working on this book, so I thank you all for that. I am so thankful to have friends like Dr. Lamar Goree, like Dr. Nicole Houston Johnson, like Dr. Nate Dudley, Miss Serena Lowe, Dr. Vaughn Calhoun, and mentors like Dr. Dawkins, like Miss Marie Clark, who couldn't get Georgia Tolliver, was my boss at the Rensselaerville Institute, who had poured into me and who are passionate about this business of education and who is about making lasting change past this season that we're in. I really want to thank all of the teachers and principals and everyone who works in schools who are making the impossible look easy every day. You go to work and you do an impossible job with boys and girls in this season of uncertainty. So I thank you. We thank you for the great job that you're doing. Thank you to Brandon Johnson, board member. We couldn't do this job without you. I encourage you and I implore you, if in fact you really want to increase life chances for children and you want to ensure that we have an education system that is both equal and equitable and that increases life chances for all children, I encourage you not just to get the book, but those principles and to carry the clarion call that is suggested in the book. I also want to thank all those folk who have done watch parties for us tonight. We thank you so much. Shout out to Cherokee Park, all the folk at Cherokee Park who are still doing great things at Cherokee Park. We thank you all so much. And all the wonderful folk who work in Caddo Parish School System under Dr. Goree. We thank you all so much. I want to end by closing by thanking Brent Ladden, Young Pro Studios, my publisher, Renita Bryant, and everyone for making this possible, as well as the band. It is my hope and my dream that, like John Lewis, we will continue to get in good trouble so that the next generation can be the generation that brings about sustainable and lasting change in our country, America. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Dr. Tyrone Burton. I'm the CEO of Passion Driven Leadership, and I've just written a brand new book entitled The Reframing of American Education. And it's a look at how education should look post-COVID-19. I want to take the time right now to thank all the teachers, the principals, superintendents, parents who are doing a wonderful job in these uncertain times. I'm encouraging you to take a few minutes, go on Amazon, go on Barnes & Noble, and get the book, The Reframing of American Education. It's a look at how education should look post-COVID-19. We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our students, and we owe it to our country.